Bet wakes up with a jolt after a creepy nightmare, heart racing, inside a tent in the middle of the forest. Beside her, her husband Jay is still snoring away, completely unfazed. Needing some air, Bet steps outside, her hands still trembling from the dream. She takes a walk to calm down, breathing in the cool morning air and gazing at the horizon from a nearby hilltop. By the time she heads back, the sun is high, and Jay is finally awake. He casually mentions he rearranged their backpacks because Bet's was way too heavy. They're on a special trip, celebrating a year since Bet beat cancer, doing what they love most, hiking and camping. But Bet's not feeling 100% yet, and the hike is tougher than she expected. She stumbles, hurting herself, but Jay cheers her on, reminding her of all their past adventures together. He suggests taking an easier path, but Bet, ever the thrill-seeker, insists on sticking to the more challenging, less-traveled trail. Jay, like the good husband he is, ends up carrying both backpacks. By late afternoon, they stop to set up camp. Bet heads to a nearby stream to clean her wound but ends up feeling overwhelmed, remembering how strong she used to be and how tough things are now. While rinsing off, she spots something horrifying, a skinned animal carcass floating in the water. Jay inspects it and guesses it's a bear, though he's never seen anything like it. He wonders if it could be hunters but admits that it seems bizarre even for illegal poachers. Back at camp, Jay surprises Bet by setting everything up for her, knowing she doesn't like being treated differently because of her condition. His thoughtfulness touches Bet, and she kisses him, grateful for his constant support. They spend the evening around a campfire, gazing up at the starry sky, talking about life, when suddenly they hear a gunshot echo through the forest. Jay wants to call the Forest Service, but Bet convinces him it's unnecessary. The shot sounded distant, and they'll be miles away by morning. Besides, she doesn't want anything to ruin their adventure. Later that night, strange sounds echo through the woods, followed by an eerie growl. Inside the tent, Bet and Jay are sleeping when a sinister hand scrapes against the tent fabric. Bet wakes up from another nightmare, gasping, and realizes Jay is gone. She grabs her flashlight and steps outside, nervously scanning the forest, but suddenly, a high-pitched scream pierces the night, startling her so badly that she drops her flashlight. When she picks it up, she discovers she's landed in a puddle of some strange, sticky goo. Things are about to get way more terrifying. Bet notices some massive footprints on the ground, think Bigfoot but scarier. Then, to make things even worse, she spots something moving in the distance, darting between the trees. But before she can figure out what it is, Jay suddenly appears behind her, having gone off for a bathroom break. They hurry back to their tent only to find it completely trashed and smeared with the same sticky goo Bet had fallen into earlier. To top it off, their stuff is ruined. Bet's phone, her boots, everything. Jay spots something even stranger mixed in with the mess, but there's no time to investigate because that same high-pitched scream rings out again, followed by terrifying roars and snapping branches. The couple panics and scrambles to get away. Bet suggests heading to a shelter she saw on the map, but Jay points out it's 16 kilometers away, a daunting trek, especially with dawn still hours off. As they hike, they spot strange smoke on a hill above them. Something is hiding behind a tree, a monstrous hand gripping the trunk. Bet is frozen in fear, but Jay pulls her away, and they take off running, surrounded by bizarre roars echoing from all directions. In their panic, Jay smacks right into a tree, but Bet helps him up, and they keep going, hearing the sounds fade a little. Finally, daylight breaks, and they reach a small stream. Jay starts to question why they haven't found any proper trails yet, but at least the roars have stopped for now. As he spots what he thinks is a trail, he moves ahead of Bet. Suddenly, she sees the strange smoke again, and for a split second, her eyes change color. Before she can process it, Jay steps into a bear trap. He screams in agony as the metal claws snap shut around his leg. Bet rushes over and frees him, but Jay's fibula is broken, and the roars are getting louder again. Bet helps Jay limp away, but after just a few meters, Jay collapses. Desperate, Bet decides to go search for help. She heads into the forest, moving carefully to avoid making any noise. But, of course, she accidentally steps on a dry twig, causing a loud crack that gives away her position. The creature's roars echo closer, but Bet manages to escape, sprinting away until she finds some strange ruins. Inside, she spots something horrifying. Stretched out human skins hung like curtains, and behind one of them, a pair of creepy eyes stare right at her. Terrified, Bet bolts, finding cover behind a fallen tree. As she hides, heavy footsteps approach, followed by a growl and goo splattering on the ground right in front of her. She's frozen in place when suddenly, someone grabs her from behind, covering her mouth. It's Quinn, a strange man who's been watching her. Moments later, Jay is carried in by Quinn, injured and weak. They end up in a hidden hideout where Quinn throws Bet a first aid kit, demanding she patch up Jay quickly and quietly. He introduces himself as Quinn, a survivalist who knows all about the beast hunting them, the Wendigo. Jay wakes up and shows Bet a strange object he found back at the campsite during the attack, and Quinn reveals that the creature stalking them is indeed a Wendigo, a monstrous entity responsible for countless disappearances in the American wilderness. Bet and Quinn venture out in the morning to find a trail so they can return for Jay, but Quinn suddenly vanishes, leaving Bet alone and terrified. She calls out for him, but instead, the Wendigo appears and knocks her down. It's about to attack when Quinn bursts in, firing at the creature, which is still in its smoke form. The Wendigo flees, and Quinn chases it through the forest but soon loses its trail, leaving him furious and the couple no safer than before. Bet glares at Quinn, asks him did he leave her out there as bait, causing Quinn rolls his eyes and says he hid because he saw the creature coming. He explains that bullets can hurt it, but the only way to kill it is to separate its head from its body. Not finding any trail, the two head back to Quinn's bunker. Back at the hideout, Bet checks on Jay's injury and realizes it's infected, badly. If they don't get him help soon, he might not make it. That's when Quinn drops a bombshell. Bet can't leave. He's noticed something about her. He asks if she's been having strange nightmares. Bet is stunned as Quinn explains that the Wendigo doesn't just eat people, it can also possess those who are sick or near death, as their weaker targets. Bet hesitantly admits that her cancer has come back, but she didn't tell Jay. She wanted this trip to be one last good memory together before things got worse. Quinn refuses to let Bet leave until he kills the monster, revealing that he's been hunting it ever since it took his daughter. It's his personal mission now. After a while, Quinn dozes off, and Bet notices a covered tunnel entrance. She sneaks in, grabbing a matchbox, and heads down. The tunnel opens into a larger, disgusting chamber filled with rotting human remains. Horrified, Bet bolts back to the bunker, only to get caught by Quinn. She confronts him, calling him a monster for using Jay as bait, but Quinn fires back that the real monster is out there, and he'll do whatever it takes to kill it. He admits he intended to use Jay, but Bet argues that she's a better option. The creature wants her alive. Quinn is reluctant, fearing that if the creature takes her, it'll become even more powerful. But Bet convinces him, saying his previous baits have been useless and that she's his best shot. As they prepare to hunt the beast, Bet says a heartfelt goodbye to Jay and takes the strange object he found at the campsite. Deep in the forest, Quinn warns Bet not to look the monster in the eyes, it can dominate anyone who does. They stop when Quinn senses it's close. Suddenly, he shoves Bet to the ground and yells, daring the creature to come and get her. The Wendigo appears with a terrifying roar, then shapeshifts into the form of Quinn's daughter, using her voice to throw him off guard. Quinn freezes, torn between reality and the vision of his lost child. In his hesitation, the creature strikes, knocking him down. He crawls in pain, and Bet rushes over, realizing that the monster has tricked him by taking his daughter's form. Quinn confirms this, revealing that he's never been able to shoot the Wendigo because it keeps appearing as his daughter. Bet tries to reason with Quinn, urging him to abandon the fight and leave the forest with Jay. But Quinn, furious and determined, drags Bet away, refusing to back down from his mission. Quinn drags Bet to the top of a hill where a log and a rope await. He orders her to climb onto the log and put the rope around her neck like it's some twisted circus act. But when Bet notices Quinn is struggling with his injuries, she decides to fight back. But unfortunately, her escape attempt fails, and Quinn forces her to follow his orders. He adjusts the rope and yells for the creature, taunting it like a madman. As Quinn rants, Bet reaches into her pocket, pulls out the strange object from before, and jabs Quinn in the neck. He stumbles back in pain but refuses to die just yet, all while hearing his daughter's voice echoing from the trees. He gets up, planning to yank the rope around Bet's neck, but hands her a knife instead. Bet desperately tries to cut through the rope, gasping and struggling, but she only manages to weaken it. She blacks out just as the rope snaps, sending her crashing to the ground. Quinn, hearing the whispers of the creature, stumbles through the forest. It's taunting him, using his daughter's voice to mess with his head. Exhausted and near death, Quinn collapses and sees the creature in front of him, wearing his daughter's face. His final breath is stolen as he's taken by the monster. Later, Bet wakes up groggy but alive. She grabs the knife and sprints back to the shelter, knowing Jay is waiting. The creature is hot on her trail, making all sorts of horrifying noises. It knocks Bet down and drags her to the ruins she'd discovered earlier. There, she sees Quinn's skin hanging like a grotesque curtain, and she nearly loses it. But then, the monster pushes her into a dark hole. She wakes up on a sacrificial stone, surrounded by creepy rock art and human bones. Bet grabs the knife, gets up, and tries to make a break for it, but the creature snatches her, throwing her back on the stone like it's some messed up game of catch. This cycle repeats over and over. Bet refuses to give up, fighting every time. But as she gets more injured, she finally decides to lie down on the stone and pretends to surrender. The monster, thinking it's won, approaches her, growling and scratching at the stone. It starts to open her mouth, trying to shove something inside. That's when Bet strikes, stabbing the creature with the knife. It roars in pain, flinging her across the room. But Bet gets up and finally sees the full horror of the beast. It's a terrifying sight. The creature grabs her again, lifting her into the air with a deafening roar. Bet spots the knife still lodged in the creature's chest and yanks it out, immediately stabbing it in the mouth. The creature roars again, but this time it collapses. Bet wastes no time. She severs its head, watching as the monster decays into a rotten mess. From the remains, a larva-like thing slithers toward her, but Bet stomps on it, crushing the last trace of the Wendigo once and for all. Exhausted and battered, Bet climbs out of the hole, relieved that the nightmare is over. As dawn breaks, she returns to Quinn's shelter and finds Jay still alive. She cleans her wounds, bandages Jay's leg, and they both step outside, breathing in the fresh morning air. They finally spot the trail and start making their way home, but as they walk, faint, haunting screams of the creature echo in the distance, reminding them that some horrors never truly fade. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed this video. This movie's name is Consumed, which was released on 2024. Anyway, hit the like if you truly enjoyed it and hit the subscribe for more crazy stuff like this. I'm sure we'll meet again in next video.